and thank you for tuning in to this special broadcast on www.fdiintelligence.com. I'm Courtney Fingar, and I'm editor of FDI magazine, which reports, of course, on foreign direct investment issues. I'm joined here by my colleague, Spencer Anderson, who is deputy editor of FDI magazine. Spencer's been hard at work in recent weeks writing the cover story for the February-March issue of the magazine, which is entitled Sizing Up the Next 11. This, of course, refers to the 11 growth economies pinpointed by Goldman Sachs to be the next big thing after the BRICS. But of course, with our focus on FDI, we're interested not just in the economic potential of these markets, but furthermore, what potential they actually have for attracting foreign direct investment. Spencer, how would you compare and contrast these markets? Which ones have really the potential to win the race for FDI?
Well, in terms of economics, they all have a lot of potential, but in FDI, it's actually quite varied. Some are doing exceptionally well, particularly through the crisis. Some saw their FDI levels in terms of projects and capital expenditure double, sometimes even treble, from 2007 to 2010. The ones that really stuck out from my research were South Korea, Indonesia, and Bangladesh.
Right.
They all just seem to be on the right track for various reasons, and they all look pretty good for winning the race in the next few years to come.
We spoke about this between you and me earlier, but South Korea is almost in a different category, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's far more developed economically and politically than the others. What's really interesting about it is that it doesn't really have any natural resources, and they've kind of just built this economy themselves, like on this export-driven economy. They're very well diversified, very stable, apart from some problems in the north, and investors like it. So it's been doing exceptionally well. Indonesia and Bangladesh are two completely different situations, but they have massive potential, huge populations. Their economy's been growing steadily, but I think what's really driving those two countries is the growth of their middle class and the purchasing power of the middle class. And a lot of foreign companies are noticing that there is a potential huge market over there, and these economies are self-sustaining effectively, and that's generated a lot of interest.
Right. What surprised you the most when you started really drilling down into the FDI potential of these countries? Any surprises?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest surprise would probably be of the countries that weren't doing especially well. The ones I noticed in particular were Nigeria and Pakistan. But the one that surprised me the most that wasn't doing well was actually Vietnam. This is according to FDI Markets figures. But while their economy is still chugging along and doing fine, in terms of FDI, they've actually been losing project numbers and capex over the last 4 years, which is surprising for a country that you keep hearing all the time about what a great growth story it is. And maybe it is, but I think people are still concerned about some governance issues, which is an issue for a lot of the next 11 countries. And I think they're also worried that the country might not be effectively diversified in terms of its economy, and it might be overly reliant on one sector. It's not as bad as a place like Nigeria that's very much reliant on the energy sector, but there are also some concerns that the economy might be overheated and it could be headed for a downturn. But I was surprised to see Vietnam moving down.
Yeah, that's a surprise indeed. It was a real hot one in the past few years, generating a lot of buzz. I guess the other point might be that not all of these markets are equal, of course, and not all of them even are that open to FDI.
Yeah, they're all very different. But when I spoke to some of the economists at Goldman Sachs who put this report together, the sort of key elements that they said the success stories would be one is governance. Is it a transparent system that's accountable and where there are elections? That extends not just to government but just to the corporations themselves. And is it is doing business there? Is it easy, or is there a lot of paperwork? Is there a lot of corruption?
Right.
The other was this development of the domestic market. They were particularly excited about Indonesia in that regard. They think of all the kind of growing middle class stories. It's really
Right.
Indonesia that you'll see the biggest growth. But yeah, and also I guess it's about diversifying the economy too, and
Sure.
not being overly reliant on one sector,
Sure.
which you're seeing in some of the countries, but less so in others.
Yeah. And just a final quick question for you. What do you think will be the main factors that will determine FDI success for these markets?
Well, of those, it certainly sounds like it's really the middle class issue and the growth of the middle class and the purchasing power of the middle class. Because as I've been told, these people, first they're just buying necessities, and then this will become, maybe they'll look for some things that they don't necessarily need,
Right.
and that are just for amenities, and then they could even move into potentially a luxury sort of scenario where they're able to buy all sorts of things.
Right.
So that's going to influence a lot of sectors,
Yeah.
especially consumer goods, the auto industry.
Yeah.
Electronics, retail,
Yeah.
even infrastructure could also benefit
Sure.
from something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, we're looking forward to
Sure.
checking out your story, and this will appear, as I said, in the February-March issue of FDI Magazine, which will be available in print format to our global readership, as well as on this site, www.fdiintelligence.com. Thank you. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you.